August 19, 2020. Let's make this happen for Gina. I am requesting that you support Gina's bill, State Bill Number 5103, carried by Senator Ben Chafin and introduced yesterday for consideration by the Virginia Rehab and Social Services Committee. Please, today, send a letter, an email, or call your representative to encourage support of passing State Bill Number 5103, Gina's bill. Gina's bill provides that any person convicted of murder where the location of the body of the victim is unknown, and the parole board has probable cause to believe that such person convicted has information concerning the location of the body, is not eligible for parole. Gina's law, simple but mighty, just like Gina was. Thank you for allowing me to address State Bill Number 5103, Gina's bill. I am Delana Hall Bodmer, sister of Gina Renee Hall. Gina was the victim in the first murder case in the state of Virginia, where a conviction was secured with no body, no witness, no confession. And at the time in 1980, there were only 5 other no-body convictions throughout the country that I'm aware of. Gina's case set precedents for Virginia, for justice. As I share my perspective from 40 years of experience as the family member of a victim of a no-body conviction case, I humbly request to consider all points as if the victim had been your own family member, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, a spouse, a child. The reality is that the loss of a loved one to a violent crime is a traumatic life event. And when it is a no body ever found conviction, the heartbreaking reality is that the victim's remains have been hidden in an unknown location. And to make the situation even worse, if we can, if even possible, family members and others relive the tragic event every time a parole hearing is held for that murderer. A process that is never ending. For 4 decades, every 1 to 3 years, my family pleads with the parole board to keep Gina's parole-eligible murderer imprisoned. The process is always a stark reminder of the reality that we never brought Gina home. Not finding Gina's body, not knowing her truth, has taken a toll not only on our family, but many others, her friends, Virginia residents, all involved for decades in the ongoing search for her remains. An advantage of a law that denies parole to those convicted without a body, those murderers, would be a law directed at a deserving few that leads to a larger impact with productive results for so many throughout Virginia. These no-body cases usually require more of the state's valuable resources, all because one murderer will not disclose the location of a victim's body. This law could minimize costs to the state, not only in the initial investigation and in the trial, but also the ongoing investigations. These no-body cases are still considered open cases, cold cases, because the victim's body has never been recovered. Gina's bill focuses on those murderers who, without regret, dispose of a body in such a permanent manner it cannot be found. Some even capable of dismembering their victims' bodies without any hesitation. And these same convicted murderers continue to receive the attention of the state's valuable resources, all because of their lack of remorse. So it seems it is a contradiction to still have an open and active case and simultaneously allow parole for a violent, convicted murderer to be released on the basis of reform and rehabilitation, when the murderer has shown no remorse for his actions, for the victim's family, by not disclosing the location of the victim's body. And as long as a murderer continues to believe in the possibility of a parole release, the murderer will rarely tell where the remains are hidden. Hence, the games they play continue, and the cost to the state keeps rising. And if released, there would be financial implications from additional resources necessary to protect the safety of the citizens, especially those who fear retaliation, those who helped secure the difficult no-body conviction, the prosecuting attorney, the judge, the jurors, the everyday people, the family members, us. A law that prevents parole of these murderers who are convicted without a body would help the state direct their limited resources to solving new crimes, instead of actively having to redirect additional resources to focus on these very few murderers, who have illustrated by their own actions incomprehensible acts of violence. These no-body convicted murderers are masters of manipulation. There seems to be no acceptable reason to ever release them back into a civilized society. Passing Gina's bill into law would send a positive message to Virginians that the rights of the victim and the victim's families are relevant, by acknowledging that we as a society see and understand the injustice of a murderer never disclosing the location of the victim's remains. The law gives the respect to the victim's families who just want to bring their loved one home, by not allowing the murderer's rights to reign over the victim's and the victim's family's rights. After all, the law only applies to those convicted murderers who are the worst of the worst, because they have no remorse for their actions. It is beyond cruel to refuse to give this information to the victim's family. Their deliberate actions should result in forfeiting their right to ever be considered for parole release. Gina would have been 59 years old this week. She was only 18 when she was abducted and murdered by a psychopathic killer. And now, decades later, we have learned of witnessed dismemberment of Gina's body. Evidence is also being discovered implicating Gina's murderer in the murder of others. It has taken 40 years to know his truth. Had there never been an opportunity for parole, maybe this life-sentenced convicted murderer of Gina would have already disclosed the facts of his other unknown victims, and there would be peace for all the families in just knowing the truth of what happened and where our loved ones' remains are hidden. Gina's legacy will be the many advocates who never gave up searching for that truth. Please consider Bill number 5103, Gina's Law, from your heart, and do what is right for everyone associated to those heinous crimes in which the murderer is capable of acts beyond our civilized comprehension, and with no remorse continues to withhold the location of the victim's body. Thankfully, there is an opportunity to change what is within your control, to change for the betterment of society. Thank you for listening.